everyone. Welcome to another episode of LA Rams Central. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Eric.
We're doing a little bit different format. We're going to hit you with 3 shows this week. I'm going to get this one filmed. We're going to post it and put it up tonight. And then tomorrow we're going to do a second segment on reviewing the games. And then we'll post it, put up, and send her on in. And then we'll do, obviously, our Saturday show with all the games. Now, which will be our bigger episode. Now, I do want to say we're not going to cover the Rams, though. So we're going to cut it off at Houston, Tennessee. We've already covered Washington, Dallas, so we're just going to cover the morning games. Really not there is one little mini rant that I'm going to have about the Rams at the very end, and I want Eric's opinion on something that I heard that's really been driving me crazy, especially since you had said something, Eric, about the Rams-Saint game, and I want to know if what your take is on it. But that's pretty much it. So we're going to go ahead and go back and forth. I'm done picking against the Minnesota Vikings. I'm done.
I should have learned my lesson on that one, too.
Yeah, right? Seriously. I mean, look, Atlanta was looking good, but Minnesota is good. And there's a difference between looking good and being good. And this year, as hot and cold as Atlanta is, and this Thursday night game coming up against New Orleans is going to be big time for them, because I think essentially it could come down to them in Seattle for that last wild card spot, and they don't have a lot of margin for error left. Look, what I was impressed with the Vikings, I know everyone's talking about Case Keenum. Did you know Case Keenum completed his last 15 passes in that game, Eric?
He is playing out of his mind right now, and in a good way, too. He's letting all the distractions kind of bypass him, especially with the Teddy Bridgewater talk. But as far as the completions go, he's got the receivers and the running backs and the tight ends to do that. So no, it doesn't surprise me. But I mean, once you start getting up into that 10 plus range, that means you're spot on. You're throwing your passes wherever you can catch them, and the defense can't.
Well, what's really interesting, and a lot of people I don't even think know this, but Case Keenum, Case Keenum set a Ram record, single game record for completions, consecutive completions last year against the Lions. So, I mean, the dude's accurate. It's just he doesn't have much of an arm, but in Minnesota that hasn't needed to be the case. Look, this is why I'm all in on Minnesota. And I know some people are going, well, can the Vikings go to the Super Bowl? I mean, maybe. I mean, it's not, and everyone's like, well, because of that defense. It's not just because of that defense. Yes, Case Keenum's playing out of his mind, and I'm done ragging on the guy. But holy crap, Latavius Murray has been running like a lunatic in the purple and white. And I just think that, Minnesota has the necessary ingredients to go into Carolina and win. And I'm telling you right now, if they go 3-0, 4-0 on this during this stretch, I don't know how they're not the best team in football. Forget the best team in the NFC. They would have beaten the Rams, the Lions, the Falcons, and the Panthers in 4 consecutive weeks, Eric.
I mean, it's eye-opening, especially this close to the playoffs. Like, they're a team that, they get those home games in the dome, and it's going to be loud and rowdy in there.
Yeah. And this is you know what this is? This is the Minnesota version, okay, in the NFL of the 1987 Twins. That's what this reminds me of. Like, except they're better. I mean, the Twins were kind of a mediocre, barely over 500 most of the year, and then got hot at the end of the year and then skyrocketed to a World Series over the Cardinals. But this Viking team has just been solid, steady Eddie all year long. So it's crazy, man. I got to hand it to Minnesota. There's so many things that were impressive. We know their defense. Look, they've got a Deion Sanders style lockdown corner, over there. They've got a safety that they call the fixer, and believe me, it's evident why. They've got Case Keenum that's just throwing dimes, in between 20 yards. And you know what? That's working. And they got Murray running like a lunatic. They've got that offensive line playing angry. And they've got a coach that just constantly coaches with a chip on his shoulder. I'm all in on the Vikings right now, Eric.
They're playing some really good football right now. I expected this to be a little bit higher of a scoring game, but when you look at it and say 14-9, you're like, what happened? Well, Valda just couldn't get in the end zone. If they would have been able to get in the end zone at least once, they might have had a shot at winning the game. But Minnesota scored enough to pull out the victory. And when you pull out a victory like that on the road, when you're at the time 9-2, or if you're 2-9, I mean, that's a big win for you.
Well, and how about getting the ball with 5 minutes to go and never returning the football to the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, and again, I was watching the game cast of that game as it was going on, and I saw Atlanta punt that, and I started shaking my head. I'm like, you're down, you have 5 minutes to go, and if you get the ball back, you're going to have seconds to go. And they never got the ball back. Kind of reminded me of the Saints not going for the touchdown when they kicked the field goal, and they were still down 2 scores. And I'm like, this doesn't solve anything.
Yeah.
So, hey, Atlanta head coach, go for the win. Don't play to make it close to a close game and say, oh yeah, we lost to a now 10-2 team. You're still in this number 6 spot. You could still improve your wild card from 6 to 5 if you just win a couple more games. And this is a game you needed to win. And Atlanta is really on the verge of not making the playoffs, especially with Green Bay getting Aaron Rodgers back in 2 weeks.
I think that's going to be a huge mistake. We'll get to that later, but I think if they decide to bring Aaron Rodgers back, he's just going to re-break his collarbone and he's going to be done for a longer haul. But we'll get to that later. Detroit-Baltimore, there's really not a lot to talk about here. Detroit their quarterback got injured. Baltimore just continued to run away with it. Baltimore to me is an enigma. They're winning games, they're good, but I don't know what to make of the Baltimore Ravens. Do you?
They were for a long time. They took over the Jekyll and Hyde status that I gave the Jaguars earlier in the season, and then it seemed to go Baltimore's way. And ever since Baltimore kicked the living crap out of Miami at home, and their defense has basically just started to take off. There was a loss in there afterwards, I believe, and that's where that Jekyll and Hyde status came from, because they looked so good and they looked so bad, but after that game with the one anomaly there, their defense has been keeping them in games and getting them wins. And when you have a defense like Detroit, who had a big injury in Week 5, they lost to Lodi Nada, and at that time they were third against the run. And since Haloti Nada went down, they're last in the NFL in rushing defense. Alex Collins had 2 touchdowns and 75 yards. Now, they weren't eye-popping 75 yards, not like a couple weeks ago where he had over 110. But he got the job done. He moved the chains. That opened up the field for Mike Wallace. Flacco was able to throw the ball all over the place on that Lions defense. Detroit is completely different away from home. Detroit and Pittsburgh are completely different away from home. The problem is, here's the other slight difference between the two. Pittsburgh can win on the road. Detroit has a tough time winning on the road, especially November, December.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Speaking of having a tough time winning, fantasy football didn't go so well for you this week, did it, buddy?
I quote-unquote let you win.
Oh, is that okay? All I know is the 1 seed's feeling pretty good right now. I don't got to play this week. I get to sit back and let this thing develop, and then I'll go ahead and give your wife the same treatment in the championship game, all right?
You wish.
All right. Moving on to New England Buffalo. Obviously, this was the WWE wrestling match that broke out at the end of the game. I think it's funny how NFL players were defending Gronk. I lost a little bit of respect for Bill Belichick this week. And this is why. I know the NFL suspended Gronkowski, but if I were Belichick, I would say we're adding an additional game suspension on top of this one. So the NFL suspend him this week, and we're suspending him next week, and that's the end of it. And then move on. But, he's going to go ahead and let the NFL do the punishment, bring him back, I'm sure. I know, I caught the dialogue between him and Buffalo's head coach, McDermott. And I just, for me, there's a way to handle situations, and Andy Reid's a perfect example on how to handle that situation. Is he just suspended Peters for this game, which is a big game, but he doesn't care. It's more important about making sure that things are done right. There's no way around it. What Gronkowski did was dirty. It was a dirty, cheap shot, and it's just another example of why so many people hate the New England Patriots. You know, when they don't get away with this, the media gives them a free pass. I can't tell you how many people I heard on the radio talking about and watching on TV defending Gronkowski's actions, saying, well, he shouldn't be suspended. It's not like the A.J. Green-Ramsey situation. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Especially since he took a shot to the back of the guy's head, which, oh, by the way, you can kill a man doing that. Just in case you didn't know, there's a reason that punch is banned in boxing and not allowed. Okay, and there's a reason the knockout game was so violent and so vile that was going on in this country a few years ago, because it's a kill shot. It's an instant kill. You hit somebody in the back of the head just right, and they're done. And, you know, you're really worried about concussions and player safety, and then you give the guy a one-game suspension. You know, it's disgusting. But you know what's even more disgusting, Eric? Well, not more disgusting, but as disgusting. Once again, the AFC least doesn't provide any competition for the New England Patriots. And I've got to sit here and listen to the fact that New England is considered the best team in football. Really? Who have they played? They've played one team of any substance early in the year and got roasted. And then they turned around and they won a good game in New Orleans. Who have they played since then? They lost to Carolina. They almost lost to Houston when they had their quarterback. They didn't look good at all, and who have they beaten? Like, why is everyone making New England like they're the undoubtable Super Bowl champion all over again? I want New England to get to the Super Bowl because they're going to get whooped in the big game.
Well, we're going to find out really soon in Week 15.
Oh, please.
Because I'm just saying that's the bigger test of the season, and because they get Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Another team that hasn't played anyone.
That is because right now it's 2-10 and 2 teams. And I know you're going to say, well, Pittsburgh's weak and New England is the greatest. Well, you know what? Who is? Because Philly, we're going to get to the game, but hey, Philly came back down to earth a little bit.
Well, that's my point. Is I think the NFC is loaded. There are two teams sitting at 5-7 and 6-6 that aren't in the playoffs right now, that played on Thursday night, that I think are better than a lot of the teams in the playoff field right now in the AFC. I'm talking about Washington and Dallas. I take either one of those teams right now over the field, minus New England and Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm not even really that high on Jacksonville and Tennessee, although I think they're better teams than they're given credit for. But that is a weak conference. And you know what? I get it, though. All you can do is play your schedule, right?
I mean, it's not the Patriots' fault. You make it out to seem like, you know, the Patriots are taking all these world-class athletes and football players and leaving the AFC completely empty. But, you know, it's not Stephon Gilmore's fault that he, you know, didn't get the contract he wanted in Buffalo and moves on to New England where he knows he's going to go to the playoffs. You know, it's not Mike Gillislee's fault. He does the same thing.
No.
It's not... you know, it's not these wide receivers' fault like Chris Hogan that, you know, he plays in whatever team in the AFC East, Buffalo, and he got no receptions from their quarterbacks, whoever they use, and then he goes to New England and he's completely relevant and has huge games early on in the season and last year.
I'm not.
You know, it's not their fault. It's not their fault that Bill Belichick knows how to use these guys.
No, I'm not discrediting New England at all. What I'm saying is the level of talent that they go up against week in and week out, especially 6 times a year in the AFC least, it's a joke. There's no competition in that division.
Are the Patriots supposed to draft for the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills while they're at it?
No, but what I'm saying is, Eric, that's not what I'm saying.
I can guarantee you that Belichick would actually draft better for those teams than what they've been doing.
I don't disagree with you, but that's not what I'm saying. It's our job as analysts to look at this realistically and critically. Okay, I see the Rams beat the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to get to this later, and the Rams are still considered a team that won't even win their division, and the Saints are being revered as the best team in football. I'm sorry, didn't they just lose to the Rams? And then the Patriots are being talked about like they're the 72 damn Dolphins, and they haven't played anybody. It's not their fault. They're playing the schedule they were given, but can we please take a break for a minute, look back at the whole picture and go, I think as a coach, it hurts your football team when you have a paper-thin gauntlet to go through. Because the minute you hit tough, gritty football, it's hard. It's hard to then be able to, when you get punched in the mouth and you get knocked down, it's hard to get back up when you're so used to throwing a punch and they go down with 25 seconds left to go in the first round, or with 25 seconds into the first round. And it's different when you got to go the full 15. And in this case, the full 60. We'll see. I think that's an overinflated matchup. I get the feeling, like, if you want my honest opinion, I think the Patriots right now, if the competition was stronger in the AFC, they would be an 11-5, 10-6, 12-4 football team. At best.
They were headed that way at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm. When the competition was a little bit stiffer.
Think about it. Houston pulled out that victory. Okay, they're 9-3.
Yep.
Any other close games, and I'll bring up their schedule right here, and I'll tell you exactly. Okay. So they got their butts kicked by the Chiefs on opening night. They won by 16 in New Orleans. They barely beat the Texans, but it's a win. They lost to the Panthers. The Bucs could have easily won the game against them on that. I believe it was a Thursday night.
Yep.
They only beat the Jets by a touchdown. They beat the Chargers by a touchdown at 2-point conversion. They blew out the Broncos. They blew out the Raiders. They blew out the Dolphins. They blew out the Bills.
Yeah.
So they hit something right against the Chargers in their 18 winning streak.
There's no question. There is no question they are the class of the AFC. But what I worry about from a football standpoint is, especially a coaching standpoint, is your AFC is not a very strong conference. And that's going to be a very interesting dilemma that unfolds for either Pittsburgh or New England in the Super Bowl. And that's why I'm picking the NFC over them.
If you want to go there, the only team I can see them having a tough time with, to be completely honest with you, is the Vikings. Because the Vikings have the defense, they could shut down Brady.
I think
the Vikings are playing at home. Okay, I don't think Philly showed on Sunday night why the Patriots would dismantle them. They've already played the Saints; they could dismantle them again. I'd love to see the Rams shore up their defense a little bit, because that would be a heck of a matchup.
Yeah, dude.
Okay?
Look,
because both offenses are explosive, and then
timeout.
After I watched Seattle defense against Philadelphia, their defense could pose a problem possibly for New England, but I think they have too many injuries on that side of the ball to prevent that.
Timeout. New Orleans Saints football team that took the field in week 2 is not the same football team that's taking the field now. That game will be dramatically different in the Super Bowl. I promise you that. Number 2, let's not act like the Philadelphia Eagles, even if they do lose this week, and I think they will, okay, and they hit a 2-game losing streak. Let's not act like Philadelphia still doesn't have everything they need to win a Super Bowl, okay? They will easily beat New England because their offense is better. It's way better than the Houston Texans offense with Deshaun Watson, okay? And they damn nearly lost that game. It's way better than Cam Newton's Carolina Panthers, and they dismantled that defense. So, yeah, it's real easy to get on track against the Dolphins, Broncos, and Bills. Okay, it's another animal altogether when you've got to deal with the Vikings, Saints, Eagles, Rams, Seahawks, and I'll even say Carolina because they beat them already. So calm your jets on that. You're comparing week 2 to now, and the Saints are way better. I don't think the Patriots will stand a chance against the field. Seattle, you're right. I think that would be a great game, but I give the Patriots the advantage because Tom Brady will find holes in that defense because they're missing too much talent. Even with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, I think they would get dismantled by the New England Patriots if the Packers made the postseason. Dallas has no shot against New England. But other than that, I'll take the remaining field. Now, we spent a lot of time.
I'll tell you one thing though. That's disappointing. Is that New England, if they get there, will only face one. If they were in the other conference, they could have faced five.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all on that. That's actually Eric.
And that's just funny because as years pass, where the Patriots Colts or the Patriots Steelers, the AFC had great teams running through there, and it was always the top tier. Say what you will about Peyton Manning and the Colts, I get that, but that was a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that was a Super Bowl. Okay, because when Manning beat Brady in 06, Manning dissected the Bears defense.
Yeah.
That, they were injured, but they still made it there. So, tame your excuses.
Right.
When Brady gets there against the Seahawks, or the Seahawks got there against the Broncos, the Broncos against the Panthers, you just saw defense take over there. And it was like, wow, they're playing at a different level than they played throughout the whole regular season.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see. And that's what you would like to see New England go through. But unfortunately, hey, you know what? The Dolphins, Bills, and Jets don't feel like being competitive.
Well, they've tanked. They've been tanking since 2005, 2008, in my opinion. But that's another story altogether. The entire division. San Francisco.
2009 because the Patriots didn't make the playoffs.
Oh yeah. San Francisco at Chicago. This was
before we get into that game, really quick. I just want to add to the New England Buffalo game. Tyrod Taylor got injured on his knee, and he was carted off, and he was in tears apparently, thinking that it might have been a pretty bad injury.
Yeah.
It looks like it was worse than it actually was. So right now, for their next game, they are actually getting Nathan Peterman and Joe Webb first team reps because they're unsure if Taylor will be able to play. So that'll be a huge news out of Buffalo, only because they're still in the hunt for that sixth wild card spot, or that second wild card spot, I should say. And they could be. I think year 20. This would be year 20 that they didn't make the playoffs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 20 straight seasons.
That's crazy. Listen, I want to touch a little bit on this. Garoppolo looked great. I expected the Bears to play as well as they did. They had that great punt return for a touchdown. But to me, Garoppolo made a couple of throws throughout the course of this game that just made you go, damn, the NFC West is going to be a tough division for a long, long time if he can get some weapons around him. I'm happy for Garoppolo and the Niners. Not the Niners, but I'm happy for Garoppolo. I like him. I've always liked him. I liked him even in New England. I'm glad he's getting a shot, and I'm excited to see what he can do. I just wish it wasn't in San Francisco. But the Bears, they were gritty. They did what they had to do. They only gave up field goals. Unfortunately, their offense wasn't able to muster enough points. But, this was a home game for you. You saw it. So walk us through what you saw in San Francisco, Chicago.
Well, I think you and I might have been watching a different game because Garoppolo could only move the 49ers between the 20s.
Yeah.
And they couldn't muster anything else in the red zone. They had one game-killing drive. It was about a 14-play drive. Again, ended in a field goal. This was a Robbie Gould game, not a Jimmy Garoppolo game. Gold was on a mission. He won't say it. He won't admit it. But they asked him earlier in the week if it was a revenge game, and he took the high road, said no. But you know darn well after that fifth field goal was made, and you saw the reaction on him. He turned toward the Bears sideline, went on the street. You know it darn well was a revenge game for him. And I could see it coming. All of a sudden, it was 14-12. I'm like, okay, the Bears aren't moving. I'm like, you got to be kidding me if this happens. And sure enough, Trubisky played as well as he can, and I was really disappointed the Bears had the one game in this game. And Garoppolo played well, but the Bears had no pass defense either. So all the throws that he was making, guys were wide open, right 1 or 2 yards past the first down marker. So, I'm going to give Jimmy Garoppolo a ton of credit in this game. he hit the receivers that he knew were going to be open past the first down marker. He only hit on one or two big plays that actually went about 10, 15 yards past the first down. So a lot of his yards came, short passes and whatnot. The Bears had no pass defense in this game. It was like every 49er receiver, whether it was Hyde, whether it was Selleck, whether it was Goodwin, who had 99 yards receiving, was open at all times. And it was just like, where is everybody? I blame that on coaching. They weren't prepared for this game. And I think they're overlooking San Francisco for some reason because they're maybe 1-10. I don't know, but Trubisky played decently. He wasn't the best. Again, he's got the weapons around him, and he did hit Dontrell Inman. I thought he'd have a bigger game, but I said that connection is getting better. Got him for a touchdown pass, and I was disappointed in Jordan Howard not running over the bad one defense of San Francisco. And he looked timid. He looked a little bit injured too, so nothing's come out about it. But the Bears are in disarray, and as much as I thought they were going to win this game, and I even said, thinking this game, I said my head says the 49ers, but I can't in my heart pick the 49ers. I got to pick the Bears. So let this be a lesson to everybody who's listening. Go with your gut instinct.
Yeah. Well,
who you're picking, and stay with your first pick too, because I did that with the Cardinals 2 weeks ago. I did that with the Bears this week. I'm going to refrain from letting that happen again.
Listen, you can say what you want. From a coaching standpoint, Garoppolo threw lasers when they were needed, like on that last drive. He did move the team in between the 20s. And, yeah, he didn't finish drives, but let's not forget he hasn't even been in San Francisco for a month yet. So, there's a new system that he's learning. It's a new coach. Trust me, Shanahan does not run an offense like they do in New England. So, I am going to give credit to Garoppolo because I think he did enough to win the game. And yes, it was the Robbie Gould show, but somebody had to get him into those positions. It's not like the Bears were turning the ball over at their 18 and the 49ers are going 3 and kick a field goal. I mean, they were moving the ball until they couldn't. So I give credit to the Bears defense. I give credit to Jimmy Garoppolo, and I give credit to Robbie Gould. And yeah, the Bears blew it, but that's what you do when you're 3-9, right? Green Bay.
Well, and that's where you look to Denver and Indianapolis for help, and they can't even help you.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, and that Green Bay, Tampa Bay. There's not a lot to say here. I watched this game. I was disgusted. No, Hundley isn't playing better. He's just benefited from really bad defenses. Tampa Bay is garbage. I don't know why anybody would have even thought Dirk Kotter was capable of leading any team to a winning record, let alone a playoff game in the NFL. Winston is finally healthy, and if that's the way Winston looks when he's finally healthy, is this year 3 for Jameis Winston, Eric?
This would be year 3.
Bust. Let's officially call it what it is. He's a bust. He's a bust. This year's almost over, and I've seen nothing in 3 years to make me go, Jameis Winston's a talent. He's a bust, plain and simple. And he ain't eating. He's gonna be eating more than W's in a few years when he's on the unemployment line. This game was horrible to watch. This was one of the worst 26-20 overtime games I think I've ever seen. Green Bay won the toss. They went right up the field. They never punted. They didn't kick a field goal. They just scored a touchdown. Tampa Bay's defense was Swiss cheese, and Dirk Kotter's coaching ability reminds me that of Ben McAdoo, except a little bit better. Your take?
Yeah, it was a garbage game. I kind of wonder about the Winston to Evans connection. It just seems like there's no chemistry between them at all. It took until midway through the third quarter for Evans to catch his first pass. I mean, he finished with about 60 yards receiving, but where were you in the first half? I know he was targeted a few times, but I don't know if that was on Winston overthrowing the ball or underthrowing the ball or whatnot. They need to get on the same page. Yeah. It's a lost season for Tampa. Dirk Kotter is definitely on the hot seat. If he last passed this year, if he last passed Black Monday for NFL head coaches, I'll be kind of surprised. Only because Blazers typically don't go, they typically let their head coaches ride out about 3 years before they make a decision. So we'll see what happens with Dirk Cutter on this.
Yeah.
For those out there who, hear Anthony talk about Dirk Cutter, because we're very used to him at Arizona State, and we know what kind of head coach he is when he coached there. So we know it's no different in the NFL, because when they're the same in one place, they're the same everywhere else.
Yeah.
Tampa had a chance to win this game. I mean, turnovers. Winston had a bad fumble return for a touchdown. Basically, is what helped Tampa Bay lose that game.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams had a huge game, 113 yards rushing. Again, the leading receiver was Devontae Adams at 42 yards. So I take that back on Mike Evans. He had about 30 yards receiving, not 60.
Yeah.
So when you're leading receiver in all the whole game at 42 yards receiving, both offenses are downright horrible. And nothing more to say about this game. Tampa could have had it, but they decided, hey, we're going to lose it.
Indy, Jacksonville, the Colts, they played well enough to be in the game, but Jacksonville eventually blew the doors off of that thing and did exactly what they should have done. Great bounce back game for Jacksonville. It was one you knew they were going to win, especially with Tennessee playing Houston. You knew they had to win this one. This is a collision course between these two. When they meet again, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I like the way Jacksonville plays. They play smash mouth football, and they play great defense. The only thing that they lack really is special teams and quarterback play. But you know what? I've been a Ram fan my whole life, and I've seen great defense, smash mouth football, and poor quarterback play get you to the championship game, like it did in '85 with Dieter Brock. So, they're good enough. They're good enough to make the postseason, and I think that's good for football and good for Jacksonville, because I think they've got some good building blocks, and we'll see what they have next year at quarterback, because I don't think it's going to be Blake Bortles, but I definitely like what I'm seeing from Jacksonville. This was a game they need to win, and they need to kind of win the way they won, and it was a great bounce back game. Good game rushing by Fournette. Defense, as usual, was lights out. Your take?
I'm wondering if we're seeing an aberration of Blake Bortles, and I say that because it was in the preseason where they were ready to bench him for Chad Henne and start the year with Chad Henne. And, Bortles threw for over 300 yards in this game. And you say he's a bad quarterback. He hasn't been playing that bad this year. He's been playing to keep the Jaguars in the game, let the defense take over. But he's still throwing the ball deep to the wide receivers he has, and Marquise Lee and Kearns when he's healthy, and going downfield in the middle of the field for Mercedes Lewis. So here's the problem, with Jacksonville. They need to make a decision. Now they're winning football games, and that's great. But what happens if Jacksonville loses a game, gets a wild card, and possibly has to go on the road? I know they dismantled Pittsburgh when they played them earlier in the year, and I'm not saying that Pittsburgh's a different team. Well, that's a rematch I would love to watch. I'm all over that rematch right there. If that would happen, I think Pittsburgh gets a first round bye, but maybe they get, the Titans, or maybe they get whoever comes out of the West, the Chargers or whoever. And I know they've already played the Chargers and whatnot. They played the Titans. They're playing the Titans twice this year, but what happens in the playoffs? It's a non-experienced team, and they're playing right now like they want to be feared. But you got to be able to do something first. I mean, they've been a laughing stock for a while, and Jacksonville did everything they could to go in this game, stay with the Titans, keep pace with them, because they know it's going to be a dogfight between those two teams at the end. And I give Jacksonville a lot of credit, like you did. Their defense is ferocious.
Yeah,
so I'm really interested. The Colts are just trying to play out the season. Pagano is most likely gone at the end of the year, and they just need to get Andrew Luck back on the right page. That's all Indianapolis is playing for.
I don't think Blake Bortles is a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's a good quarterback. I think there's a difference. I think he's good enough to start, but he's got to really have the right thing around him. It's like Dieter Brock. Dieter Brock was good enough to lead the Rams in the conference championship. He played good enough football, especially in his game against the St. Louis Cardinals, that clinched the division for the Rams in 1985. And the Rams went 11-5 with him as quarterback. But where they want to go, Bortles isn't it. And they need to find that guy because you don't need an elite quarterback. I don't believe that to be good in this league. I think you need a really good quarterback to be a threat. And if Jacksonville wants to be a threat and not just kind of a consistent competitor, then they need to get a quarterback because Bortles will make them a consistent competitor, but he won't make them a threat.
So let me ask you this. Bortles technically has one more year, and, the Jaguars can pick up that fifth option. And from what it sounded like at the beginning of the year, it didn't sound like they were going to do it. Does his recent play toward the stretch convince you to pick up that option?
No. If I can get
okay.
Hold on, let me answer your question. If I can get Eli Manning.
Okay. So let's say your answer was yes for a moment. And then you sign Bortles to an extension. Okay? And you're married to Bortles for 5-6 years. Then what happens if he gets that contract, even if he leaves Jacksonville and then reverts back to his old self? Is it just that he's getting paid? That's his motivation, or
who knows?
He's a very hard quarterback to read right now. I mean, for a guy who was about to be benched from Chad Henne at the beginning of the year to be playing like this, like I look at that like he's playing in a contract year. Like it's legit a contract year, and he has been playing outstanding.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Now, not Brady, not Keenum, not Goff outstanding, but outstanding by his standards and
sure.
by people looking at. Listen, he could easily be comeback player of the year. How bad he was last year.
I think that's going to probably go to Goff or Gurley, to be honest with you. But yeah, you're not wrong. Denver, Miami. There's not a lot to say here. Miami absolutely destroyed Denver. The Broncos are worse than I thought. John Elway came out and said he's ashamed of his team's 3-9 record. He should be ashamed of his draft record is what he should be ashamed of. Denver had no plan post Peyton Manning. That's evident. They had no plan. And, I found it funny that everyone gave John Elway all this credit when his quarterback was Peyton friggin' Manning. I'm good with Peyton Manning at quarterback. Anyone's good with Peyton Manning at quarterback, especially in the regular season. Don't tell me you're a great GM because Peyton Manning's your quarterback. What was the plan in Denver post Peyton Manning? There wasn't one.
Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, Paxton Lynch. There's another winner. Look, the Dolphins are terrible, and they blew out the Denver Broncos. You want my analysis on this game? Holy crap, how bad is Denver because Miami's awful. That's my analysis. Kenyon Drake continues to play well. I knew he would, former Bama running back. But this Denver defense, can we finally stop saying they're an elite defense? Please? Can we finally get on that train?
Yeah, we're going to have to because they got shredded. So my only question on this game is, the talk of the game is that Miami was up 33-9 with 10 minutes to go in the fourth, and Adam Gase called for an onside kick, and the Dolphins recovered. Do you have a problem with that?
Yeah, I do. I do. What are you doing? Kick the ball off, take the W, and go home. There's one team in the NFL that has had a history of never being able to win with class or lose with class, and we'll talk about that in the next show. But as a coach, there's codes of conducts that you follow. You know these things from the moment you're in high school, and even, I won't say Pop Warner because Pop Warner is a weird animal, but from high school on, there's a code of conduct that you follow. And the average fan, and me and you have gone rounds with this, where you're like, that's football, you do what you got to do. No, there is a way you do things as a coach, and there's a way you don't do things. Kicking an onside for the sake of running up the score and getting statistics, what good is it going to do? Is anybody going to look at the end of the year at Jay Cutler's statistics and go, wow, what a great quarterback? No. We know what Jay Cutler is. We're not even going to look and go, wow, what a great year, because people nowadays dive into these late game statistics and go, well, they had the game in hand and they really piled it on here. And in this game, it was garbage time. So let's look at the body of work as a whole. So you don't even get away with that anymore. It's not like it was in the 1990s and early aughts. So, for me, there's no place in football for it. Win with class, lose with class. That's the way you do things. And the best coaches in football, historically, demonstrate that. The Tom Landrys, the Don Shulas, the Chuck Knowles, the John Robinsons, the Chuck Knoxes of the world, the Vince Lombardis, even the Mike Dickas, and the Bill Parcells. Guys like this are a dime a dozen. And, they're footnotes. And they don't get remembered, and karma comes their way. You have a few great coaches that do run up the score. The Jimmy Johnsons, the Bill Belichicks of the world. But by and large, most coaches follow those codes of conduct. So I do have a problem with it. I've spent way too much time talking about a game that was completely irrelevant. But, yeah, from a coaching standpoint, I got a real problem with it. You?
Okay. Just, we covered the onside kick, nobody cares. There was a couple of Broncos players who said they took exception to it. Well, bro, you just lost 8 in a row. So there's a lot bigger deal going on than just one onside kick. It is what I think.
Yeah.
Was it uncalled for? Yeah, you can make a case for it. You're still playing a game. It's not like you're going to be. I like to go back to a pitcher in baseball where he may be up 10-0, but does that mean you're going to groove fastballs right down the middle of the plate just so you can throw strikes and get the game over with quicker? No, because those guys are going to take you yard and then they come back. So you got to kind of keep your focus as well. He's kept the game on the gas pedal, and he challenges guys, and they responded by recovering an onside kick. Now they did not go on.
Different animal.
After an onside kick.
Different animal. Baseball, you have to get 27 outs. There is no time. In football, there's a clock, and it runs out. And when you're down that much, and you've got to drive the length of the field against a defense, tell me one team, any team in National Football League history that came back from 28-9 with 6 minutes to go in a game. The answer is no one. So, football's a different animal. Baseball's a different animal. You've got to get 27 up and 27 down. In football, you play against the clock. With about 7.5 minutes to go in the game, if you're down 2 scores, you have 3 opponents. You have the officials, which every team believes they're going up against. You have the defense, and you have the clock. So, it's a different – you can't compare the two. I get what you're saying, but you can't compare the two. Kansas City, the Jets, I'm going to kind of let –
Before you go on with this one, I want to start this game off. Okay? I typically don't ask to do that, but I'm taking this one over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay? This is not an I told you so game because I picked the Jets and you picked the Chiefs. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm going to ask you a series of questions about this game. Did you watch this game?
Yes.
Okay. Did you watch the first quarter?
Yes.
Okay. In the first quarter alone, how many passes did Travis Kelce catch?
Was I think 3 or 4, wasn't it?
Okay. Pretty spot on. I like that. So the Kansas City first drive was 5 plays, 75 yards. On the second play of the game, Alex Smith threw Kelce for 32 yards. On the fifth play of the series, Kelce caught a 22-yard pass. Okay? Drive number 2, 1 play, 36 yards. 36 more yards to Travis Kelce. At that point in time, and that was pretty much at the end of the first quarter, Kelce had 3 catches, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. Anthony, how many total plays, offensive plays, do you think the Kansas City Chiefs ran that whole game?
I'd probably say close to 70.
Try 48.
That's it?
48.
Wow.
Guess shot in that game.
Like one or two.
None.
None. I thought he had 4 catches.
None. So he had 3 catches, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and was never heard from again. To me,
that's ridiculous.
Kansas City going away from one of its strengths. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? You play in the NFL, if you play defense, you're able to cover guys, make tackles. But don't tell me that all of a sudden Travis Kelce just decided not to show up in quarters 2, 3, and 4, and that the Jets had somebody on defense that was able to cover Kelce and be his shadow all over the place. They didn't have Revis. They didn't have Cromartie. They didn't have guys who were once feared on the Jets defense where they let up 140 yards a game. It seemed back 4 or 5 years ago. 48 total plays. And out of the first 6 offensive plays, Kelce caught 3 of those passes for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And then nothing.
This is why the Chiefs are now 1-6, so starting out 5-0.
Yeah.
Because they go away from their strength.
Mm-hmm.
They force-fed Kareem Hunt in this game. Kareem Hunt ended up having 9 carries for 40 yards, so they tried forcing him more in the second half than the first half because obviously they didn't need him in the first half.
Yeah.
He barely showed up on the receiving end, okay? But when you look at the Jets, Hurst was over 150 yards, Robbie Anderson was over 100 yards, Forte had 50-plus yards rushing, Bilal Powell had 48 yards rushing and a touchdown. Forte had a touchdown catch as well. The Jets were just automatic. They did not panic when they were down 14-0 after about 6 minutes to play. I thought it was going to be a Chiefs blowout. I was like, oh, I can't believe I picked the Jets in this game. I look like a fool.
Yeah.
Then I forgot. Then I remembered that's for like there's 4 quarters to a game.
Yeah.
The Jets just took the Chiefs to the woodshed. The Chiefs actually held a 31-30 lead toward the end of the 4th quarter. And let's see here. And the Jets scored. Let's see if I can find that here.
Well, let me just tell you right now, though. That final drive, the officials gave them the friggin' game. Now, it should never come down to officials, but they called a bogus holding penalty on the 2-point conversion. They called a ridiculous penalty before the holding penalty. So they had like 18 cracks from the one.
I saw that and I was like, what are the Jets doing? Because I was watching the game cast. I'm like, they're still on the 1-yard line. What the heck's going on?
Yeah.
But I saw a little bit of the game and then I had to switch over to game cast. I'm like, what is taking so long for them to score? And whether or not there was holding on the call, the Chiefs just couldn't get downfield with 2:15 left to play after the Jets scored.
No, it was ridiculous. I don't. Look. They were in field goal range and they held them to a field goal. They probably could have put it in overtime, but they weren't getting a touchdown. And yeah, I mean, you summed up this game. There's really not much more I need to add. Get the ball to your weapons. Sometimes I think coaches outthink themselves, and this is a classic example of it. Here's a team that doesn't have a problem with that. The Tennessee Titans. They just give the ball to Murray, and they just run the ball with Henry, and they run the rock, and they say, stop it, and we're going to play defense, and we're going to shut you down. I know Houston is down some men, but credit Tennessee. They did exactly what their recipe for success is, and the Chiefs could do a lot to learn from it. Big day for Henry. Great game for the Titans. Big win for the Titans because they keep pace with Jacksonville. Last one, E. So what do you want to say on this before we jump to my quick little...
This game was a lot closer than you really have to realize, only because for a while, Houston was leading, and Savage had a good game. He had 365 yards receiving. He was actually 1 yard off from leading the NFL that day. And, of course, 365 yards and his team loses. And the one guy who had 1 more yard, hey, that was Alex Smith. Guess what? He lost 2. Yeah. So it's not always about passing yards. Obviously, it's about putting up points. Houston did what they could to stay in this game, but Tennessee, like you said, Henry and Murray, great 1-2 combination right now. When last year was pretty much just all DeMarco Murray, and Henry led the rushers with 109 yards in this game. Tennessee is getting it done. It's not easy for them right now, but they're getting it done, and that's all that matters.
Yep. Morning games. I'm writing this down. All right. Well, listen, E. I got to go jog. I got to get ready for a 5K again in March. So I'm going to start my training tonight. So I'm going to cut it short here. I'll do my Saint commentary on the Rams-Saint game as far as the crap that I've been hearing in the news lately. And then we'll jump right in with the Rams-Cardinals game. So there wasn't much of a Ram. There wasn't any Ram coverage today. But we'll do that tomorrow. I don't have anything to add. Anything that you want to add, Eric, let's go ahead and put it on for tomorrow. We'll start the show with it, and then we'll dive into the last few games. The next show should be relatively shorter because there's not as many games to cover. A lot to talk about with the Monday night game, and then we'll do our Thursday night prediction. But anything you want to add before we go?
We can get into more of this a bit later too, but Goodell finally signed this contract extension for about $200 million through 2023. I mean, it's big news only because he's the commissioner for another 6 years. Even though he had another year to go on his contract, it's about $40 million a year after incentives and bonuses. Which let me be commissioner for a day and have your salary, please. But yeah, just I don't know. The CBA is going to expire after the 2021 season, so we'll see how Goodell comes out of that.
Yep.
I mean, it's still 4 years. It's still 4 years away, but it's still something that I've heard way too much about in the last 6 months, and I know the chatter's not going away anytime soon.
Well, we will definitely talk about that tomorrow because I have a lot to say on that too. So, without further ado, that's it for LA Rams Central. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Eric.
And go Rams!